Morning, Paul. What can you tell us about Nikolai Ehlers, the latest on him, and the other guys that weren't out? I understand that it was an optional skate.
Yeah.
Is there anything to read into those guys?
No, I'll just give you a rundown. So Logan Stanley, Matty Perot come off the taxi squad onto our roster. Dylan DeMello will not play tonight. He's moved to non-roster. He and his wife had a baby. So great news, and everybody's doing really well. So we're happy about that for him. Nikolai Ehlers, there's been no status change from where he was yesterday, but that does not rule him out for the game tonight. I think I think that covers everything.
We'll go next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Paul. Mark Scheifele had just been out talking to us about the season and the baseball style and how he thinks, there's going to be more potential for change when you're playing teams back to back. And, there's more of a chance to out-coach teams. So I'm wondering if you think that this year there's maybe an ability for you as a coach to affect the outcome of games greater than it's been normal in the past, and if so, if that'll make this your most challenging year as a coach.
I think there's an opportunity there. Like the fundamentals on when one team wins and the other one loses, I don't think that changes in the broad strokes, right? The more competitive, more structured, harder working team usually has the great result. But because of the familiarity, having the ability to adjust or have your players adjust quickly in a game to change something the way you look, it might get you a goal. You might be able to change a wrinkle in your neutral zone, try to exploit something in theirs. So there's that opportunity, right? And that's why playoff series are a whole lot more fun than the regular season, where you're just kind of constantly just trying to reestablish your game against different styles. When you get into these teams and it's a 3 and 4 game run, you're going to want to be able to make adjustments in game and between games.
And we'll go next to Ted Wyman from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead.
Thanks, Gregor. Paul, would Sami Niku go in for Dylan DeMello? And if Ehlers can't play, would Christian Vesalainen be in?
Correct with both of those.
And we'll go next to Kelly Moore from CJOB.
So, Paul, I'm sure you and your coaching staff have been preparing for all kinds of scenarios like this, but what kind of a wrench in the works does it throw when you've had primarily the same people skating on the same lines in training camp? I know there've been a few occasions on the defense pairs where you wanted to take a look to see how guys perform there. But is it a little bit of a different scenario if you have to start rearranging the forward lines?
I think over the course of the year, you end up changing your lines just on coaching decisions quite a bit, especially if you don't like what you've been getting. The potential then for change, the most drastic change, right? Because you lose 2 or 3 guys for protocol, right? 100% healthy. So everybody's mentally prepared for that, right? Like this is now the NHL's kind of second tour in a covert environment. And we are now, I think everybody's in tune to it. So as much as we would take maybe some belief in the fact that we've been so beat up here over the last year that a lot of guys remember what it was like to have 7, 8, and 9 guys out of the lineup for highly unusual injuries, whether it's playing football or whatever. We've grown up in it a little bit here. So having a guy go out because of protocol and you changing your lines wouldn't be anything new for these guys.
And we'll go next to Ken Weed from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Ken.
Morning, Paul. I know in the past you haven't been a fan of 11 and 7. Could that change your philosophy change in a compressed schedule, or will that just be out of necessity if you have to go to it?
I mean, you're a fan of whatever you have to do. So there's a possibility you may become a fan some night. But boy, I'd be less likely to be a fan of that now in a compressed schedule. So you get into the block that we've got coming up here where we go 5 and 7, and then it ends up being 6 and 9. But that 5 and 7 block would be the toughest stretch of hockey. And there'd be a whole bunch of these guys that have never played in that environment. If you get into one of those games and you've got 11 forwards and one goes down, you could be in a real tough stretch for a while. So we'll want to keep a full complement of forwards in our lineup. You'll see here tonight, and I think possibly both teams, and we certainly saw differences in the games last night, but you're going to see teams run their entire bench 5-on-5, almost, maybe resetting on timeouts and things like that. But your whole bench is going to get used because you're going to need it.
Go next to Sarah Oleski from TSN. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, we've seen Andrew practice up beside Scheifele and Wheeler, and we know that he can move up and down the lineup. Would that be an option that you would be looking at tonight if Nikolai couldn't go? And what do you like about potentially Copp being there?
Yeah, that would be where we would start for sure. Andrew can play up and down the line. He's also a real strong left-handed face-off man for that group. Mark has, really been kind of charged over time. Adam missed a bunch of hockey last year for us at playing against the other team's best. And Andrew Copp very probably has got the highest defensive IQ of our forward unit. So he's going to bring some size and some strength and real smart hockey play with that line. And we'll need it because they play against the other team's best.
We'll go next to Paul Friesen from the Winnipeg Sun. Go ahead, Paul.
Paul, just a little more on Nick Ehlers. The whens and the whys, is this just a matter of waiting for a test result or two, or can you say a little more about that?
I mean, these will always be based on test results. So there's a whole bunch of different ways a guy can come in. He was standing too close to somebody who tested positive or didn't have his mask on enough, or I mean, they look really heavily into all the contract tasting of all the players of who was around a guy, but we're just waiting for some test results back, and then we'll see where he's at. Well, we may give you more detail after it's over, but right now nothing's really changed.
We'll go next to Rick Ralph from TSN 1290. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, just wondering about game day preparation, how maybe that's changed from last year in that where guys sit when they get dressed. Is there anything different along that line?
Everything is different, right? So where we have our meetings, we're using the restaurant now so we can get enough spacing, the number of people that are in the room at the same time, the number of people that are allowed in the gym at the same time, all of it matters. How they're fed is completely different. Individual water bottles, individual everything. The masks, I've got mine here. It goes on before I leave, before I walk in the door. So there wouldn't be any part of our routine that looks like it in the past, but it's pretty darn close to what it was like in the bubble. So it's not, when I say everything is different, it's different of pre-COVID. But these guys now, I think, are into it. They're good. Like we don't have to chase guys down around to remind them. And then maybe having just an awareness, and you see other teams in training camp get the whole chunk of players shut down at the same time. No, they're not all positive. You might get one guy that has symptoms, and that shuts a bunch of people down. So now, being that the players in the room understand you could be completely healthy and may have sat a little too close to somebody, and that could be the reason you don't play. Nobody likes that idea. So they adhere to what we've asked them to and what the NHL's asked them to do.
We'll go next to Murat Tatesh from The Athletic. Go ahead, Murat.
Hi, Paul. Good morning. Thanks for doing this. In terms of those high danger chances you've talked about cutting them down. You talked about creating more of them as well. Is there such thing as one or two things that we could look to tonight to kind of get a sense of, how well it's working for you thus far, even though it is just game one?
Yeah, the final number, and then it's a small sample size, as you know, Murat, so don't take too much. I don't want to give you what we've tried to do to design to get better at it, because with every adjustment you make, there's an adjustment to exploit it. So the simple thing was, we felt, I'll give you some detail. We felt that we finished 10th in goals against, and clearly our Vezina goaltender had a big part of it, but it wasn't the whole story. That there were certain styles that we gave up, certain kinds of shots from inside that area that weren't nearly as dangerous as other ones. So we tried to focus on the event that created the most dangerous shot, and it's try to fix everything. Just get to certain places on the ice more often. So we focused on specific details of certain kinds of shots.